just before the Nigel Farage announcements, you said that it had only been a couple of hours in the thinking. He'd only told Richard Tice he was essentially ousting him and taking over as leader a couple of hours before. Was this something which had been premeditated by Nigel Farage for months, or do you think it was, was he just frustrated that he wanted to be in there and he was sort of half in, half out?
If the Tories want to change leader, they have a tortuous, long, drawn-out leadership contest. So does the Labour Party. They don't do it like that in the Reform Party. Nigel wants to be leader, he's the leader. And it was done within hours.
Well, he owns Richard Tice mind?
I just think he minded enormously. But there you go. Nigel's the leader. Look at the coverage that he's getting, Nigel Farage. Richard Tice, in his dreams, could never get this sort of coverage. Remember what Ken Clarke said about Nigel Farage? Ken Clarke, one of the most successful Tory chancellors in history, said Nigel Farage is the most successful modern politician of his generation. He's a game changer.
A bit at the beginning, we're just showing it on the pictures. Nigel Farage comes on, having been introduced by Richard Tice. He then essentially kind of hangs around, trying to be in the photo. Look at him. No, and in the end, he has to sort of walk off.
I know.
And that's it.
He's not in the story. It is now all about Nigel Farage between now and polling day.
It's humiliating for Richard Tice, who was the leader, loaned the party more than £1 million, but it's a company majority owned by Farage. So he just says, right, I'm going to be... It's not like other parties, as Andrew says. He just says, right, I'm going to be the leader now, and that's it. I've got majority shareholding, and I'm installed. And he's clearly been thinking of it for a while, because he'd said, was it 4 weeks ago, oh, I don't want to be going to Clacton every Friday, knowing in a campaign you would have to turn up and do a bit of door knocking. But he's seen a chance and he's grabbed it.
Can you just... For the viewers who may either love Nigel Farage and think he's extremely powerful speaker, they might back his ideas, or they might think they can't stand him.
Yeah.
But why is he, as an individual, so powerful? Why is he, when he announces he's going to stand, and currently, on the polling... I don't know whether he's likely to win or not in this particular constituency, but he's certainly that party.
Cookies have him at evens.
Is not. There is presumably the Tories have a majority in that seat.
24,000.
Big.
A significant majority in that seat. Why is all the attention on what Nigel Farage does? Why does the Mail call it Rishi's darkest day?
It's Rishi's darkest day, or was yesterday. I mean, there might be darker days ahead. There may be better days ahead. Because there was two mega polls which showed Labour getting landslides, the Tories getting hammered. And Farage will energise Reform UK in a way Tice couldn't. And Reform's voters... 6 times as many in 2019 were Tories as were Labour. So he will take votes from the Tories, not Labour. Now, of course, he and Boris Johnson were the two driving forces behind Brexit, the referendum. And he's a personality. He is a personality. Now, I think most of the country don't support him. There's no way. I'll be very surprised if Reform gets more votes than the Conservatives. I think that's a bit of... bit of talk, but nevertheless, he can engage a section of the population and excite them.
And this election now, I mean, I would think migration had been third or fourth most important issue. He will thrust migration now right to the front of the queue, and that will suit Labour. And it will be morning, noon and night, because the fact is the Tories have failed on migration. Brexit was supposed to be getting back control of our borders, and that hasn't happened.
No, we have a net migration figure of close to 700,000.
Ridiculous.
When David Cameron, when he was Prime
Minister, said it's going to be low tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Not above 100,000.
His lot will let in even more, let's be honest, Labour. But yes, they will. Yes, they will. But the fact is Farage will attack the Tories' record again and again, but it'll be even worse when Starmer gets in.
And in fact, you say... So he's thrust immigration back into the political spotlight.
Well, hang on, it hasn't gone away.
No, that's true.
But I think cost of living and health and public services will be first and second. Immigration will be a big third.
Except this morning, we have the Home Secretary, James Cleverly, on the programme this morning and going to announce a new annual cap on migrant visas.
After 14 years, do you remember when the Conservatives used to put it in that manifesto after manifesto, they would get net migration into 5 figures below 100,000. They never ever did it.
No.
Right? But of course, what Farage can do, and what he does brilliantly every time. He's got no responsibility because he's got no track record because he's never done anything. He even says Brexit, he gets his Brexit. There he is, cheering, pump in the air. Then he says, well, it's not my Brexit. And on migration, he can attack the Tories and say, 14 years you have failed, because he's never had to run anything himself.
But he also tapped into this sense that nothing's working. And that's what a lot of people think, whether it's the trains or water. Is it Thames Water now? I've told a village you can't have it. Don't drink the running water. He's tapping into all of that. In a way, much more so. I think he does it better than Keir Starmer. He's a great orator, and he's great at getting to the point.
Hard right populist who exploits and widens division.
Very popular.
And picks on people to get everybody else to hate. That's what he does.
But what is his motive? I mean, his motive is he wants us to talk about him. Well, we're doing that.
Yeah.
If you're Keir Starmer, today you're sitting there rubbing your hands.
Yeah,
this makes it more likely that Keir Starmer wins. That can't be Nigel Farage's motive. What is he actually about? He wants to be an MP. He's failed 7 times. What is he trying to achieve here?
He wants to realign the right after the election. So if the Tories are just smashed to pieces at the next election, do they then look to a new Messiah to rebuild them? And is he the new Messiah?
And he's made a reference to what happened in Canada in the early 1990s.
They were wiped out.
He talked about the Reform Party, the right party in Canada, who went from having a large amount of seats in government to being reduced to just 2 MPs.
Yeah.
And he's saying he wants to do the same thing here.
Yeah. And the leader lost her seat. The Prime Minister lost her seat in that landslide.
Is he actually trying to split, destroy, replace the Conservative Party?
He wants, and I think he sees a deal between Reform and the Conservative Party in the aftermath of a
Do you think that would be a good thing?
Well, let's see what happens with the result. But at the moment, let me tell you what Nigel's problem is this. He's unleashing his stormtroopers against Tory MPs, many of whom will lose their seats. So he's trying to do his best to inflict fatal damage on the Tory party.
And if he makes it a bigger Labour majority, he doesn't mind?
Absolutely. And there'll be many Tories say we could never, ever have him as our leader.
He's a wrecker, not a builder. But he, in order to get his realignment on the right of British politics, needs to smash the Tories to smithereens. And then he will want a new UKIP, Brexit, Reform, whatever you call it, to emerge from the ashes now. If he does, and it's really on the hard right, I think that's good for Starmer and Labour. Because going into the 5 years' time, if you've just got a whole load of headbangers against you, you're more likely to win that election.
Kevin, I thought when Andrew said that the Tories will be looking for a new Messiah and they'll be looking to Nigel Farage, I was expecting you to do a Monty Python.
He's not a Messiah, he's a very naughty boy.
He's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy. Shall we have a listen to what Nigel Farage told Harry Cole of the Sun's podcast? I don't think I can... Oh, yes, never mind the ballots. That's right. I was going to say, was it an Ofcom moment? But no, never mind the ballots.
Sun TV.
On Sun TV, let's have a look. Andrew, did they not give him what he was hoping for, and that's why he's pledged to stand against them?
I think if he'd been offered a peerage at some point going back...
it wasn't about a peerage. What...
He wants power.
Yeah, exactly. What is it he was asking for there? He was either saying, do a deal like 2019... where the Reform Party stands without the Tories in some places and the Reform stands sides. Or he was saying, bring me in as a Conservative MP, give me a seat. Maybe he was saying to the right, get rid of Sunak, bring me in. I mean, it's really important, that clip, because it's not a joke, it's not a stunt, it was real. What was he actually asking
Well, I don't know.
He wanted a clear run for Reform candidates with no Tories standing against them. That's what you want.
The Tories to pull out their candidaats.
Boris Johnson and a Conservative majority of 80 seats back in 2019, yes, was in part because Corbyn was at his very, very worst. Brexit was still a big thing in the country, a mania, but it was also because Reform pulled all of its candidates against Tory MPs and only stood them against Labour and others. So he helped create that majority, then he felt he got nothing back from the Conservative government of Boris Johnson.
But
so he's quite bitter about that when you hear him talk. He's angry.
See, I think we've had Liz Truss, Suella Braverman, others saying he should join the Conservatives and I wonder whether actually that isn't the thing which was in his mind. His frustration. You know, imagine if he had said last week, "I will stand as a Conservative candidate if you want me." What would the Conservative membership reaction have been to that?
Well, I think the membership would have liked it, but I think Rishi Sunak would have been appalled.
Exactly.
Well, exactly.
He's more popular than Sunak, Tory members.
Right. Yeah,
so was he trying to lever a change? And in the end,
Maybe.
in his frustration, he thought, I can't get that, so screw them, I'll stand...
Or maybe he was just thinking about the best possible way to maximise the chances for reform rather than the best chances for himself.
Really?
He might, but politicians get carried away in elections, they all do. And he seems at times to think that reform can replace the Conservative Party on the right. And the Conservative Party has been the most successful electoral machine in British history. What, 300 plus years. It's managed to morph and mutate and change, but always to go for power.
That's why I think, in his mind, he was actually thinking he'd like to become a Conservative candidate, and they didn't offer it to him. I've done this for you, give me something back. And he didn't get the call. Sunak, of course, would not want to make the call, but lots of other people would have been saying, actually, he could be the guy who turns around for the Conservatives.
At the time would have been at 2019, when he stood down so many candidates in the 2019 election, and Boris won with a landslide of 80 seats. He could then have said, my dear friend Nigel, you stood down all those candidates, come and join us. He didn't.